The first was personal branding last month. And if you successfully developed your personal brand, the next thing to do is put it out there in the world. And we're going to talk about that networking today, how to get your message out there, whether it's your personal brand in particular because you're building personal relationships, or your business brand, however you want to make connections for whatever it is you want to accomplish. And then next month, we'll be doing basic negotiation. If you successfully network with people and somebody wants to do business with you, how do you structure the fundamentals of a win-win basic deal in making things happen? So with no further ado, let's start. Let's talk about where it fits in the network of things. Personal branding and networking and negotiation are all core elements necessary for success everywhere, especially in business. It affects your position, it affects your relationships, affects your career track and how you move forward, and ultimately your financial success, the success of the company you work for, and more. At VCRO, Virtual Chief Revenue Officer, we talk a lot about being intentional, making your goals clearly stated, and then making them happen because you say so. And during the course of talking about networking today, I'm going to be talking about what are your goals for networking. So you shouldn't just go out to meet people blindly. And we'll get into that as we go. Let me tell you what we're going to get into today. First, we're going to talk about what networking is, what some of the common myths and misunderstandings about networking, how to set goals and objectives for networking specifically, and then how to network effectively, which is most of today's session, and then some recommended fundamentals, a distillation of everything that came before into a half a dozen or so bullet points of the most important things to focus on. There are 2 pages of resource links and a video of the webinar, assuming that we figure out how to get the video started here. Or at some point, I will actually re-record the presentation just to make sure that everybody can get access to the video. And then, as Kelvin said, we'll have some time at the end for questions. If anybody has a question, if you type it into the chat box, Kelvin will organize those and serve them up to us when we get to the Q&A section. So I'm going to jump right into what is networking. You probably have an opinion or a thought about what networking is, and I looked it up in Merriam-Webster's dictionary, where it says this, and specifically the cultivation of productive relationships for employment or business. And the key there is relationships. It's not about numbers, as you see as we go through this today. It's about building a relationship, and a relationship that means something. Actually, the question for you is, what does networking mean for you? You know, I talk to people about networking from time to time in my role, and some people say I hate networking, and some people say, oh my God, my boss wants me to go to this meeting, and I have to meet people, and I'm just not good at that. And some people just really salivate. I can't wait to get to the meeting. I want to meet a lot of new people, and some people are really like that. So different people have different opinions about networking and different thoughts about it. Forbes magazine says this: networking is everything. It helps your chances of employment, increases your contacts, and can help you improve your business. And I don't know if I necessarily say it's everything, but you get the point here. It's really important to build a network, a strong network, a network of relationships, not just names and phone numbers or email addresses. So I'm going to first start talking about networking by telling one on myself. I actually went to a networking meeting today. 5 o'clock last night, I realized when I looked at my calendar for today that I had made a notation that a friend of mine, someone I used to work with and haven't spoken to in a couple of years, was making a speech this morning at a networking event. I hadn't planned to go. At the last minute, I realized that I could go. I was well prepared for today, except, of course, that I had to learn what the problem was with the video camera. But otherwise, I'm well prepared. And I said to myself, well, maybe I should go. It's early in the morning. I don't want to get up early, but I'd like to meet this guy. and connect with him. I'd like to hear what he has to say, and who knows who else I might meet. So I went. I got there. I had a little coffee, a couple of slices of melon. I actually cheated and had a muffin as well. And then I walked around and I met people and said hello. This is not the actual event, but I talked to people and you know, said, "What are you doing here?" And one woman walked up to me, the first person I actually talked to, and she said to me, "What brings you here?" By the way, that's a principle we'll talk about as we talk about how to network. She was being interested in me before I even said hello to her, and I told her I know the speaker, and we started a conversation. It was a good icebreaker, a good way to start a conversation. And ultimately, she said, "Well, if this is this your first time?" And I said, "Yes." And she said, because I had never been to this event before, she said, "Well, let me introduce you to the organizer." And she took me over and introduced me to the organizer, a very strong networking person. She was very interested in me. She provided support. She gave me something of value. I was very interested in her. And then I started asking her questions about her as well. Then I went up and said hello to my friend who was in front getting ready to deliver his talk. And I did the same thing with him. The first thing I said was, "Hey, we haven't spoken in a long time, but given your subject today, it reminded me I really should introduce you to my sister-in-law because you guys can help each other. And I don't know that it means anything to me, but I think you'll get some value from meeting her, and she'll get some value from meeting you." Again, I was being interested in him and offering him value the same way the lady earlier was me. And then you would think I'd walk around and hand people my business card, and they'd hand me their business cards, except for one thing. Guess what? I forgot my business cards. I showed up there without business cards. Classic, bad thing at a networking event, you would think. Yes, business cards are still important. Yes, we can do it digitally. We can bump phones and we can send people to simple websites, and there's always pen and paper, of course, but it would have been better if I had my business card. And on the way there, I said, maybe I shouldn't go. How can I not have a business card? I'm speaking about networking this afternoon. How could I show up at a networking event without a business card? But I was clear about my objective, and my objective was, at the very least, to reconnect with my friend who I hadn't seen in a few years and to learn from what he was going to be speaking about. And that the secondary benefit might be that I meet some people that could be valuable connections for me. And in fact, I did. And so the idea here and the principle is that you got to be out there. You got to be playing the game. You got to be on the field. You've got to be proactively going to places and starting conversations to meet people. And we'll talk about that as we go forward. Whatever might stand in the way for you, don't let it. Just get out there and talk to people. A lot of people are afraid to network because of things that could go wrong, or they're not polished enough, or they don't know. Well, I'll give you a few tips today, and you'll add some of your own, and you'll learn from other people, and you can use the resources list that I've attached to the presentation, and you will be able to find all kinds of other ways to do it, but this will get you started. So let's talk some of the myths and misunderstandings about networking. The first one that I find important to talk to people about when they ask me about networking is about being an introvert or an extrovert. A lot of people think that extroverts are the ones who succeed at networking and introverts don't or can't, etc. It's not true. Introverts can succeed at networking. All you have to do is be authentic. All you have to do is be yourself. All you have to do is listen. And we'll talk. I actually have a section to talk about what introverts can do at a networking event. Another thing is that people think quantity is important. You know, you go to an event, the more business cards you get, the more successful you are. You have a LinkedIn profile, the more people that you're connected to, the more successful you are. I don't subscribe to that notion. I believe that quality is much more important than quantity. I would have a significantly higher number of LinkedIn connections, a significantly higher number of Twitter followers if I automatically followed everybody back like many people do, etc. I bend over backwards to be connected to people, to know something about them, to have them know something about me, so that it really is a relationship, that there's something there. Now, granted, I know some people really well, and some people I may only have exchanged one email with them and about what they're about, but at least there's something, and quality of the relationship is more important than the number of people. There's another myth that people don't want to be bothered. Of course they do. If you go to a networking event, you're going because you want to meet people, and so does everybody else who's there want to meet people. You know, people. There's a meme that people do business with people they know and trust, and you have to make it personal and real. If you meet someone in any way, shape, or form, even if it's electronic, at least you have some connection to them. They will be more disposed to interacting with you over whatever it is you might want to interact with them about than if you have no relationship with them at all, except that you connected about this one particular thing. And it's a two-way street. At the same time that you're looking to meet people, you're networking to them. Remember, they're networking to you. I know someone who gave a speech and was very excited at receiving 6 business cards from people in the audience. And after the event, when she followed up with the 6 people, each person wanted to know what she could do for them. And she was making the calls because she thought that they could do something for her. So it's a two-way street. It's nothing wrong with that, by the way. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. But you want to be aware that it's a myth that people don't want to be bothered. And it is a two-way street. So when you're in a networking environment, I ask this question: who's at the center of the universe? Well, you might have said instinctively that it's you, because as human beings, we all experience ourselves as at the center of our universe. In the first webinar in the series, I talked a little bit about the concept of Sonder, and I'd like to talk about it again. Sonder is a bit of a made-up word. You won't find it in the dictionary. There is a dictionary called the Dictionary of Obscure Sorrows. Strange name, I know. And it has a bunch of made-up words. And the guy who created the dictionary has concepts in there that I stumbled on one a few years ago called Sonder. And it addresses the concept of how to relate to other people and how other people relate to you. And I'd like to read you a simple beginning description of it right here. Sonder is the realization that each random passerby is living a life as vivid and complex as your own, populated with their own ambitions, friends, routines, worries, and inherited craziness. It's an epic story that continues invisibly around you, like an anthill sprawling deep underground, with elaborate passageways to thousands of other lives that you'll never know existed, in which you might appear only once as an extra sipping coffee in the background, or as a blur of traffic passing on the highway, as a lighted window at dusk. So what does it say? It says that I might be sitting there at a networking event, or even experiencing myself on an online networking tool like LinkedIn, and experiencing that all these people are out there and I'm at the center and they're extras in my universe. They're people that I can interact with in my universe. Interesting, the person sitting next to me this morning was experiencing the same thing about herself. She was at the center of her universe and I was an extra in her universe. If you can ground yourself in that, when you talk to someone, you will recognize the importance of relatedness, the importance of understanding what's important to them, and what they're looking for is as important as what's important to you and what you're looking for. And that's what we're going to talk about when we talk about the techniques of successful networking. So when we talk about setting goals and objectives, the question is, what are you looking to network for? Are you on a job search? Are you looking to get a job? Are you going to the event because you hope somebody will hire you? Are you on LinkedIn because you hope somebody will hire you? Set a goal. Be very clear about what you're looking for in that field of looking for a job. Be precise. Are you a person who's responsible for revenue generation? It's like most of the people that we deal with at DCRO are people responsible for revenue generation in their businesses. And you're out there looking for a way to sell yourself or your product or your service rather than sitting at your desk and waiting for the phone to ring. What's your goal? Well, are you just going to look for somebody and figure it out after the fact? Or do you know in advance what you're looking for? Because if you do, it might help you understand how to relate to the people you meet in terms of maximizing the value you can give to them and they can give to you. Maybe you're networking to find other kinds of people, resources, partners, and other people to play with in business. You know, I use terms like Playmates and fun. This is an opportunity to have fun. You know, it's out there. You can be yourself, and I encourage you to be yourself when you're networking. And you never know who you might find and what role they might play in your life and what role you might play in theirs. And then, of course, when you're networking, you're planting seeds for the future. There are people that I've met a long time ago that I keep in touch with over time. Maybe I speak to them once a year, maybe once a month, maybe once every few years, but I keep in touch with them. One of these days I'll be able to help them or they'll be able to help me. That's planting seeds for the future as a goal of networking. Well, how do you do that? How do you network effectively? Well, you're always on. You're always there. You're always interacting with people, and you're doing it everywhere, you know? Everywhere. Well, it doesn't matter where you are, whether you're at a business event like I was this morning, whether you're at a meeting at your company's headquarters, whether you're at the dentist's office, whether you're at Thanksgiving with your family. It doesn't really matter. You're always having the opportunity to interact with people, and I'm not suggesting that you're always looking for business contacts, and I'm not suggesting that you're always looking to see what's the professional connection between us. But out of making a relationship connection with someone, you might discover that that's someone that you can do business with or someone that could hire you or whatever your particular goal might be. So the question becomes, how do you do it? So we're going to talk a little bit about how to, and I'm going to move quickly through when. You already have a network, right? You know you already have a network. Some people don't. You want to work your current network. Like this morning when I went, my primary objective was to connect with someone who's already in my network. And then I met some other people who were not. The network is everywhere, this network that you already have. You want to work that network. You want to connect with someone new or you want to reconnect. Both of those things happened for me this morning. You want to accept invitations to business events. It's very easy to say, I don't see a clear connection or a clear reason for me to go to that event. But if you can, you're more likely to expand your network and even learn something if you're out there on the field, if you're out in the game, if you're at a network event or an event where you might meet other people. It doesn't have to be called a network event. You can ask friends and family. You can say, hey, I'm looking for somebody who knows this, or I'm looking for someone who can help me with that. That's a networking conversation. Can you introduce me? Can you point me in the right direction? That's all networking. So, unlike what I did this morning, carry business cards with you everywhere so that it's easy for people to get in touch with you. Okay, let's talk about where. We talked a little bit about it, but let me give you some groups of places where you can network. Online's obvious. you know, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, bloggers, authors, subject matter experts. When you read things that people write, or whether you go to LinkedIn, or whether you're posting on Twitter, or even when you're on Facebook doing something personal, you're interacting with people and you have the opportunity to build relationships. We're going to talk a little bit more about LinkedIn in a little while. Offline, you go to trade associations, you have university ties, I just realized, not ties around your neck, but, you know, like alumni groups and people you went to school with, etc. You have professional contacts, your accountant, your attorney. You can go to meetups. There are a lot of meetups about subjects that you might be interested in or might be your professional area. And when you meet people in those places, you get to do it as well. And then there are others. There are business events, family events. We talked about Thanksgiving dinner. You go to the local bar and grill with friends for a drink. You might meet someone, or an airplane lounge. You know, airplanes are an interesting thing to me. People who know me know that I met my wife, where are we? On an airplane 37 years ago. And we met after the plane landed, and guess what? Yes, I gave her my business card because we were going to say goodbye after we got off the plane, and she gave me her phone number that I wrote down, and I gave her my business card, and we've been together for 37 years. So you never know where you might meet someone or what their connection to your personal network might be. And then, you know, it works in reverse. People you meet through business today can become friends tomorrow. I'm very proud to say that a lot of my friends are people I've met through business. So, yeah, let's talk about how to do it now that we've talked about when and where. The most important thing is to prepare. And I'm going to talk to you about a few things that need to be prepared before you go to network. Again, I think I said this earlier, a lot of people wing it. A lot of people go and meet someone first and then figure out what to do with their relationship after the fact. I'm suggesting that it's better to prepare first. Prepare your story very carefully. By the way, if you're embarrassed to be out there or you don't wanna, you want to be real. So you know, operate out of your goal. Let people know who you are. When you're telling your story, be very clear about who you are. You should have several levels of story, by the way. It's a statement of what you do. You know, I tell people I'm a virtual chief revenue officer. That's 4 words, and usually engenders a conversation. People will say, "What's that?" Or "Can you tell me more?" Or "That's interesting." And then I have an elevator story about what eCrow does. And then I have a value proposition statement, which is even longer. And you need to figure out the appropriate way to talk to people. If you prepare it, you will be able to deliver it because you're prepared. If you have a goal, an overall goal for the success that you want to get from meeting people in the world, and a specific goal, like the one I had this morning was to meet my friend, reconnect with him, and learn from what he had to say. And then I took away a couple of additional contacts, 2 business cards of people I'm going to follow up with later tonight or tomorrow morning. I'll send them follow-up notes, glad to meet them, etc. So be very clear about your goal and operate from that goal, being real and authentically you, telling the truth. Like I said to people, I can't give you my business card. I'm supposed to be an expert in networking, but I came without business cards today. If it's okay with you, please give me yours and I'll send you my contact information. No point being anything other than truthful and direct with people. And empower yourself. Sometimes people tell me they don't like to network or go to networking events because they are concerned that they have nothing to contribute. Of course you have something to contribute. Whoever you are and whatever you do is something of value. And at the very least, you can be a generous person and say to someone, "Can I help you with what it is that's important to you. Map your network. Write down what your network is. Who are the people that you know in what areas? And if you put this down on paper, rather than keeping it in your head, or rather than having a single list of all the people you know in your contact database, you will see overlaps. If you write it down on paper, all the people in my family, all the people in my company, all the people who are my customers or clients, all the people who are my professional contacts, my lawyer, my doctor, my dentist, all the people who are this, that, or the, whatever the networks are in your life, you will find overlaps. And also writing them down, you will say to yourself, oh my, I haven't spoken to that person in a long time. I should reach out to that person. Once you do that, make sure that you honor the connections you make. So meeting someone today, having a spark, a connection, a feeling of relationship, and then letting it go forever and calling them again in 5 years when you need them is not the way to build relationships. The way to build relationships and the way to successfully network is to keep in touch with people, to honor the connections. Now, of course, you'll meet people that you won't have a connection with, or that you won't want to follow up with, or that won't want to follow up with you. But when you do make that connection, you'll know it's there. And it's really valuable to keep it going rather than to let it go dormant. Be interested, not interesting. That woman that I told you about this morning that asked me what was I doing there and then immediately volunteered to introduce me to the person who organized the event, who I didn't know, immediately got to my good side. I was very interested in her, and I very much wanted to do something for her in return. Be open to making a contribution to others out of who you are, and be interested in what's important to them. Constantly revise and update your story. Just because you come up with a story today doesn't mean that it will reflect you 100% tomorrow. Ask questions about the other person. Be a really good listener. Don't be listening thinking about what you're going to say next. Offer to help them before you ask them for their help. And carry that forward to online networking as well. So if we talk about LinkedIn as a good example, because LinkedIn is a supermarket networking capability on the internet, and I assume that everybody is at least at some level familiar with it, but I'm going to talk a little bit about it as a networking platform. There are any number of important ways to appear on LinkedIn. And one of the ways to do it is to be professional. You must be professional. Somebody looks at what you've put up, and it's a loud statement about who you are. If you don't have a real photo of yourself, for example, if you have an avatar or some obscure, really creative image that you put up, a lot of people will not, they want to see the person that is behind this. So, have a professional photo, have your bio and the work that you put up there well done, and add connections or relationships as relationships as you go. Don't just add individuals. I found when LinkedIn first came out and I was learning what it was all about, I was a little lost. I wasn't quite sure how to maximize it, how to use it. It was, I don't even remember the year, 2006 or 2008 or whenever it was that it came out. And I started looking around for places I could learn about LinkedIn, and I found a chat on Twitter chat on Tuesday nights called LinkedIn Chat. And I participated in it for several weeks. I asked a few questions. I answered a couple of questions if somebody asked. It wasn't even about LinkedIn, but I made myself real in that conversation. And then I realized that the person who hosted the chat, a woman by the name of Vivica von Rosen, had the Twitter handle @LinkedInExpert. And I said, that's a person I want to meet. So I reached out directly to her. I sent her a direct message on Twitter, and I said, I was on the chat for the last few weeks, and I'd love to talk to you because I could use a lot of advice. We connected. I offered to help her with revenue growth before she even gave me advice about LinkedIn. And she gave me that advice about LinkedIn. We kind of helped each other. I introduced her to a client of mine where she got some work. She introduced me to some people who helped me in my business. I don't know why this thing is popping up here. We then became friends. We talked to each other regularly. She's going to have dinner the next time she's in New York. But it was all a result of just reaching out to someone I didn't know at the time. And when you add connections and build relationships, those are the kind of things that can happen. You can use LinkedIn to research experts and people in your field. You must be engaged by doing things and speaking. You can search for groups, you can join groups, you can share your knowledge and write comments and posts. Put information out there. Now, you may be sitting there and saying, I'm one of those introvert people that Joseph talked about before. Even forget a meeting where I would be someone who can't do that. I can't even do it online. Well, let's talk about being an introvert. It's okay to be an introvert, really. Relax. It's not going to stop you. As long as you manage your expectations, as long as you take advantage of your introversion and listen well, prepare and anticipate icebreakers. Like what are you going to say to someone if you walk up to them? Think about it before you even get to the event. Set reasonable goals. Like, if I go to this event, I'd like to meet one new person. If you can, if it's available, if an attendee list is available in advance, look at the attendee list in advance and say, oh my, that person works at that company. I would love to go work at that company. Or, oh, wow, look at this person's background. I'm going to try and find that person. And by the way, if you're there and it's not working and you're not being genuine and authentic, or you don't feel well, or you're not alive and out there, give yourself permission to leave. Don't try and paste it over and make believe that you're really excited to be there when you're not. You would know if somebody else did that, and they will see it in you. Let's take an example. If you're being you and you're being sincere, you might do what that lady did this morning when she walked up to me and said, what brings you here? You might say, why are you here? And whatever the person says back to you, you might say back to them, that's interesting. How can I help you achieve that goal? Or maybe that what it is that brought them there is something you know something about. And you say, I can help you achieve that goal by this. Just look, being interested. And if the truth is that you can't help them achieve the goal, you might say, I don't know what I could do to help you because that's not my field. But if there is anything I can do, just let me know. Making yourself available, being interested rather than interesting. Now, you also may have heard the term working the room. I don't like that term, although I must admit I say it sometimes myself. Working the room meaning you walk into a room of potential people. If I looked at the room like that picture in the lower right corner and I saw all those people, I'd say to myself, how am I going to make sure I meet everybody? But I know I can't meet everybody, so I just start talking to people. How do you do this? Well, the person you're next to is the perfect person to meet first. Say hello. Ask them why are they there. Or say, whatever you use as your icebreaker. It doesn't have to be that. Pay attention to individuals, a real person that's there, not the fancy title that's on their name tag. Find a common ground in the conversation and get connected to that person. Be interested in them. Let's talk about examples here like we did about earlier. Business cards, I said earlier, they're not really old-fashioned. But, if you give someone your business card, they have to figure out what to do with your business card. The same way you have to figure out what to do with theirs when you're exchanging business cards. So don't just put them in the drawer. And be willing to make notes. You know, this morning, one of the people I met had a conversation with me about some discovery he made about the difference between marketing and sales. And he thought, when he heard what I did, that it was very interesting to tell me about it. And he did. So I said, let me write that down because I want to remember that you told me that. And I wrote it down on his business card. And when I follow up with him, I will be able to remember. Now, this morning, there were only 2 cards and 2 people I met, aside from my friend who I met, who I knew before. So it won't be hard. But if you're meeting a lot of people at an event, there's nothing wrong with writing things down so that you can make your follow-up personal as well. Okay, a couple more points, and then we'll take questions and answers. By the way, I assume that if you have questions, you've been putting them in the chat box, and Kelvin will feed those up afterwards. Here's some summary fundamentals, some things that I talked about networking that I think are really important to keep in mind. Don't wait for people to come to you. Whether you're online, you put your bio up on LinkedIn and you're waiting for people to connect with you, or you walk into a room full of people at a party or industry event or a meeting or whatever it is, and stand there and wait for people to come to you. You might luck out doing that, but it's not likely. Better for you to be out there, putting yourself out there, thinking about, you know what, I might feel foolish if I start a conversation that doesn't go the way I want. Or I might talk to someone and say the wrong thing. Or who knows what could go wrong. Or how about this? That person's the CEO of a huge company. I can't talk to him or her. And so don't let that stuff stop you. Everybody's in that room. They know that people are going to walk up to them. Introduce yourself. Get into a relationship. Don't wait for people to come to you. And when you do get into a relationship, don't forget to follow up. I said it 3 times on purpose because it's really important to follow up. Follow up, follow up. Don't just shake hands with someone, exchange business cards, and leave thinking that you're now in relationship. You need to follow up. You need to keep it alive. Now, I have another thing that I want to talk to you about that's really important, and that's the importance of face-to-face and phone contact. You know, in today's day and age, we all text a lot and we email a lot, and there is no real difference between face-to-face and phone except for the quality. But there's a huge difference between face-to-face phone and electronic communications. You simply don't get the visceral connection in an email or a text message that you will when you're talking to someone and able to hear the inflection in the voice, or being face-to-face with someone and being able to see each other's reactions and body language and raised eyebrows or smiles or whatever it is that's going on. So if you have a chance to connect with someone face-to-face, do that first. If you can't face-to-face, try and do it by phone. And if that doesn't work, then do email or text or whatever else comes next. As I said a couple of times, be interested, not interesting, unless, of course, you're the speaker. If you're the speaker, you have to be interesting because people came there to hear what you have to say. But when you're reaching out to someone at a networking event, one-on-one, be interested in them. And very, very important, be authentic. Be yourself. Be truthful. If you want to say, I don't know anything about that, say it. Don't hold it back because you think you should know something about it. Be you. And be generous. Being generous is very important in terms of offering to help people, as I said earlier, before you ask them to help you. And I said a couple of times that the quality of the connections you make is much more important than the number of connections you make. And if we use a physical networking event as the benchmark, it's not as important to walk away with a pocket full of business cards and you can't even remember who the people were whose business cards that you got. That will be very hard to build relationships with people if they're just another name on a business card. And be goal-oriented. You set some goals. Don't be afraid to work against your goals. Don't be afraid to realize your goals and have that be what it's all about. And then you're in a game here. Business is a game. It's an opportunity to pay the rent, I know. Getting the right job is an important opportunity to set your career. But you can have fun. You can be fun. You can be fun to be around. You can laugh. You can enjoy yourself. You can take chances. In the grand scheme of things, if you walked up to that CEO and said something to her, and she said, "Nice to meet you," and then turned around and walked away, so what? But what if you walked up to her and said, "I'd like to meet you, I'm Joseph," and you shake hands and you say something to her that starts a conversation, and she says something back to you, and you leave in relationship in a way that you could follow up with that person and say that you're in relationship with that person? Wouldn't that be better? That is never going to happen if you're not reaching out, if you're not trying, and if you're not having fun and having a good time, because people will enjoy being with you. So we're almost finished. There are 3 more things to reiterate. Get in the game. I've said that to you several times. Even going to the event this morning was deciding intentionally on my part to have it be a win by meeting up with my friend, no matter what else happened. And on top of the fact that on the way there, I realized I didn't have business cards. The second thing is burn no bridges. My daughter told me a story the other day that was very interesting in this department. You know, you might not like someone. You might even have a bad interaction with them. And you might want to decide to let them know how you feel or to do something that makes you feel good in the moment. Chloe told me that there was a person that she used to work with that she didn't really like and didn't respect that much. And she was sure that he didn't like her and didn't respect her that much. And they kind of avoided each other. She was smart enough to not tell him how she felt. And, you know, it's just one of those things. She wasn't lying to him. She wasn't being inauthentic. But she was just noticing that they were not connected. And 2 years later, she got a phone call from someone who said that he heard about her from that very same person that she didn't like and she was sure didn't like her. And he gave her this glowing representation about her attitude and her work and how good her work was and how much fun she was to be with, etc. So this is also in the department you don't know. You just never know. So don't burn any bridges with people, because you never know when they will become the next person to hire you or your biggest client or someone to recommend you to someone else. It's really about networking. It's about having connections and relationships, because, hey, you never know, you know. You keep in touch, you're in the game, you don't burn bridges, and you never know when something might, in fact, help you, right? Okay, so I think we're done. There are 2 pages of resource links in here, which you'll be able to get when you get the video. I noticed, I didn't know when it went on, but I noticed that Kelvin managed to get the recording on. So we will make anybody who's on the webinar today will get an email with a link to that recording. The next session in the series is Basic Negotiation, which will happen on April 21st, and you can register at this address, and we will also let you know this address for the registration for that webinar when we send out the video link. You can get on the recording just by clicking on the link that we send you. And we'll open it up to questions. I will leave this to Kelvin to organize, and Kelvin, let me know if you have any questions from people out there.
We'll give a couple of minutes to allow people to type any questions they have, particularly. But Joseph, I'll toss you the first one. Your advice not to wait to be noticed in a full room of people really resonated with me. Do you have any ideas for some good starters or way to open conversations?
Yeah, it may sound too simple or even trite, but I would use that. What brought you here? You know, I would ask people. Um, you can ask people. Look, you can ask people what do they do. Um, that's fairly common. That's something that people ask everywhere. You'll say hello to someone at a party, and they'll say, "What do you do?" It's the most common thing. That's why I stay away from that one. But there's nothing wrong with saying to someone, "What brought you here? Why are you at this event?" Um, like this morning, the lady asked me, and I said, "I know the speaker." One thing led to the next. Or you can say to people, "I noticed that you work at such and such a company. I have a lot of friends that work at that company. What part of the company do you work at?" Or whatever's real for you in terms of some sense that you have of the person that you're talking to. And you can, even if you're the kind of person who can be really out there and vulnerable, you could say, "This is kind of awkward for me. Is it awkward for you to be here?" It doesn't really matter what you say to people as long as you're getting into relationship and asking them about them. That would be the thing that I would counsel, is make your opening icebreaker something about them, rather than walking up to them and saying, "I'm brilliant and I'm here because I'm really good at this." That would not be a good icebreaker.
Joseph, you started touching on this at the end of that answer, but could you share some things that you would recommend that any participants or students or individuals shouldn't do when they enter or kind of navigate a networking experience?
Um, sure. So when you're in a networking experience, when I assume by that you mean a meeting or a breakfast like I went to this morning, or by the way, when you're if you work at a company and you go to meetings sometimes where there are enough people working at the company that there are people there that you've never met before, that's an opportunity to add someone to your network. That's an opportunity to meet someone new. So it doesn't matter whether it's inside your own company, inside your industry, or even a basketball game or a social event or Thanksgiving dinner. If you're talking to people, when you're at a professional networking event, like the reason people came together was to meet each other and to hear from a speaker or to be at a convention, the thing to do is be professional. That's the most important thing. Don't be unprofessional. Don't be too cut up. Don't be don't be overly personal until you've established a relationship in which personal will, that personal will fly. And the most important advice, I guess, I'm tending back toward the positive rather than the negative of what not to do. The most important thing to do is be interested in the other person. By the way, I believe that will make it easier to speak to a stranger if you're asking them about them rather than if you're talking about you anyway. So that's where I would focus. Any other questions?
Great. So I'll wait about 1 more minute, but if you have any additional or final questions to ask, feel free to pose them at this time.
Okay, I'll leave it up to you, Kelvin. Thanks for getting the video started, and thank you, everybody, for tuning in. I really appreciate that you gave us your valuable time today. I hope this was valuable. You will actually be able to contact either one of us for more information, either Kelvin directly at kelvin.rutledge@uga.edu or me, Joseph at v-cro.com. And either one of us will be glad to answer other questions. Watch for the email that will contain the link to the video and the link to the next session. It'll be there within 48 hours at the most. And thanks again, and I hope we see you next month.
All right. Thank you so much for attending, everybody. Have a great day.